What is going on, everybody? It is Monday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern, here in Ontario, Canada. And joining me, as always, the master of show, share, and slash. It's Mr. Mean Dean Renner. What's going on, dude?
What's up, everyone? I'm recovering from a busy weekend and a long day today, so I am happy to kick back, relax, and be here to chat with everybody and get into some topics for tonight.
We have a very special treat in store for everybody tonight that hopefully we don't get in trouble for, because if we do, it'll probably get taken down pretty quick. Um, but we shouldn't. So we'll see what happens here. What we're going to do is the main event of the show is we're going to play the 31-minute, I guess you could say, documentary on Stef Hutchinson's version of Halloween 3D. Dean and I will be stopping it every 5 to 8 minutes or so to just sort of give our takes on where it's going. A lot of people probably remember Halloween 3D as the likely movie to follow Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which is true. They made several attempts at it. One was from Lucier, and the other guy, I can't remember his name, but they did My Bloody Valentine 3D. You got to figure out that guy's name. I always say Lucier and then forget the other one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're going to dive into that. Only we're going to dive into Stef Hutchinson's take on it. And believe it or not, you might be thinking, oh, Halloween 3D. Thank God they didn't make that. You might be surprised at what they missed out on. So stay tuned for that to main event here and probably not too long from now, to be honest.
Yeah.
But right out of the gate, man, I just want to go back to our special episode that we did last week covering the Scream news. You've had a chance to see the fan base react to it a bit, whether it's on our groups or other groups that we might be in. What's your reading of the temperature of the fan base following this announcement? Because obviously you have people that are in heavy support of Melissa, but some of those people were the same people that wanted Nev to get her payday for 6 and come back for that. So from what you see right now, what's the landscape of the Scream fan base look like right now?
Yeah. It's kind of medium. I'm seeing a lot of, positivity surrounding Nev coming back. And then, people still on the fence about, do they want to see this movie? Do they want to, continue moving forward with the franchise? Kind of caught in the middle of, do they want to support the movie or not? And then there's some people who are kind of taking a stance like, I don't like what they did to Melissa, so I'm not in for Scream 7. And as I mentioned before, those people are typically the same ones who, closer to the movie that we get, they're usually there ready and out at the theater or streaming or whatever. Eventually those people, yeah, I don't know if you want to use cave, but they usually kind of give in, and they'll be there to see the movie, support it in some way. And I think once like the dust settles, we'll get probably people more so just happy that a new Scream movie is happening.
Yeah. I can't say I've seen too much of it. It's been a shitty few days since we were last on here, but
Oh boy.
for me personally, as a casual fan of that franchise, I'm excited at the possibility they have an opportunity to do something very different with this one.
Mhm.
I thought they kind of went different with 6, at least for 2/3 of the movie. Now I think they have a chance to make like a more, some people are going to hate me for suggesting this, but like a more artistic A24-ish type Scream movie. Maybe not A24, but like, again, the one I always go back to is I go back to Hush and think about the just the setting that it's based in. And obviously you don't have to have those same dynamics at play, but I love the idea of they're out in the middle of nowhere and there's a ghost face there and we get a very different non-sorority like Scream movie. I would love that. I doubt they have the balls to do it, but I would love
Right.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, taking that contained approach and that isolated setting, and really utilizing that to kind of build at least the opening, and then you can kind of expand and bring in other characters and maybe break outside of that box a little bit. But I think in some way, what they should do is they should kind of use that contained thriller formula and really, really try to utilize that. Like I said, whether it be in the opening or another sequence in the movie, I think they have a big opportunity to kind of switch gears and change things up a little bit while also still kind of sticking to the formula that they know for a Scream movie. So I think the idea is on the table, and I wouldn't rule it out. And I would look forward to seeing something like that because it's the most thing I want to see from this franchise is change things up a bit. Throw some curveballs at the audience. Try to trick your audience. The Scream fan base is pretty keen to the formula and figuring things out. Why not take this opportunity to change directions and really kind of shake your audience up and get back to that not knowing what to expect.
Yeah, I think that would be an excellent direction. I just worry that they're just going to go back to the well and do the same thing. But
Mhm.
I'd like to think if Kevin Williamson's going to be involved, that he's not just going to want it to be a nostalgia thing, that he's going to want to leave his stamp and
Right.
definitively be its own thing, in my
Mhm.
opinion. But I'm not Kevin Williamson. I can't tell you how he thinks.
Right.
Wayne Gawkey says, wasn't someone named Todd Farmer at some point involved with Halloween 3D or its concept? Actually, I think you're right. I think that is the other name. I think it's Patrick Lussier and Todd Farmer, who I believe is a frequent or used to be a frequent guest over on Dave McRae's channel.
Hmm.
So, yeah, no, he's or not guest, but in the chat anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't remember what their take is. I know I've listened to the audiobook coverage of it. I know I read it when it first came out, but I think Stef Hutchinson's version is just leaps and bounds beyond. I remember thinking that when I first read it, and then later on listened to it. And we'll have a chance to dive into that in just a bit here. Actually, not too long from now.
Yeah.
I suppose without further ado, though, man. Did you have something for? I can't remember. Did you have something for movie countdown or just?
Not this week, but I got overloaded on mail day today, so I have a couple of treats for everybody here. So this might eat up a little bit of time, but nothing too crazy.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And
Mhm.
speaking of which, I tried my damnedest to get this out this weekend, but with everything that happened, I mean, you know what went down, Dean.
Yeah.
It's super hard, but we will have this launching on the channel. Honestly, barring something disastrous happening tomorrow, if you missed last week's show and tell, or pardon me, show, share, and slash, it was Dean's Super Mario Brothers collector set, which let me tell you, I'm not a fan of that movie, but that collector set is a dream collector set for people. So if you missed that last week, I think it's like 13 minutes and change long. Check it out this week because I really do think you'll like what Dean covered last week on the show. And now we get to see what he has for us this week, man. Take it away.
All right. So this is something that Sean actually put me onto. Sent me a link. I looked into this and then figured out what it was, how to find it, where to get it, and I think the selling point for me was the actual price. I was able to get this for, I think, a steal of a deal. And this is an Italian import. It comes from Warner Brothers, so it's an odd mix of somewhat of a collector's edition. It's still studio release. It's not overly packed with extras and goodies and the sort of capacity that some of my other collector sets come with. However, still a very nice set and very awesome, I think, item to throw into my collection. And that is the Joker 2019 Italian import collector set from Warner. This came in for me at about $40 shipped international from the UK. So I couldn't be happier with that price. And to see this thing still around was really surprising to me because stuff like this doesn't usually last all that long. And I think this came out close to when the first releases came out. So this is about, 4 or 5 years old at this point. Box is all in Italian on the back. So unless you can read Italian, which I think one of our viewers in the chat probably can, but yeah, this kind of would list all of your contents and stuff in this package. I love this front cover. And another inclusion that they put in this box with this set is a poster, I believe, minus the logo in the center. And you have a nice, it's about a 12 by 19 image of just this artwork on a poster, which I thought was really cool. So I don't think I showed the spine off yet, but you get this awesome font right down the spine.
I fucking love this movie, man. Like,
It's
this is so
yeah,
underrated.
it's a great film, and then to get something in this capacity, you know, I'm glad to get this now. I wish I knew about this a couple years ago, but we have it here now. This box, for as big as it is, it's pretty lightweight, so there's not a whole lot going on in here. But let's get into it. So we have a nice big book style, and it opens up. That is a digibook style that holds the both of the discs. I don't know if you guys can see it, but rolled up here in the corner is that poster. So that's still in the band. I just got this today, so we are all kind of getting a good look at this for the first time. And then I will come back to that in 1 second because this tends to be my favorite piece in here. We will get this digibook out if it doesn't want to fight me. There we go. They they tucked some art cards here in the back. I believe there's only 3, but these are really nice compared to quite a few of the other ones that I have. So I'll take a peek at these really quick with you guys. And they did this one I love. I think this is my favorite out of the 3. If I can get it out. There we go. Just the face paint and the dripping of the face paint with the logo. Super nice.
That would have made a good poster too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would even consider getting an image of that and having it printed somewhere. Then we get this one here where he's coming out of the curtain. Pretty nice there. And then we have a very comic book-esque, almost would look like a book cover if I was to take a guess at what that would be. Yeah, pretty nice. That, to me, says that that would be some type of cover for a book. All right. And then last but not least, before we get into the discs, they included a prop. And this prop is something that I have wanted to find for quite some time and haven't been able to until the set came out. And they went ahead and did a reproduction, laminated nonetheless, of the laughter condition card. So this is a replication from the movie. You know, the card that he hands to people to explain his condition and why he can't control his laughter. This, for as small as it is, I just love little stuff like this. You don't get things like this unless you go to Etsy and someone, you know, recreates it and they sell it independently. But this is from Warner. So Warner included this in that set. Like I said, small, but very, very cool. And I'm actually surprised it came laminated because when I heard this was coming with it, I was planning on going to get it laminated or doing it myself. And sure enough, it's laminated inside the box.
Dude, that is
Very
fucking
cool.
awesome. I love that. And it's such a big
Yeah.
part of the movie too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So to throw that in there, it's just awesome. So I will be putting that on display somewhere. And then this is just really simple. This is the digibook that holds the discs. So you've just got a, you know, your Joker title there, and then really nothing on the back except some of the film credits. Typical stuff. And then in here you do get a 4K and a Blu-ray. They are basically identical as far as the disc art and what they look like. The 4K is just the movie and some audio settings and some other stuff. Your Blu-ray has the special features attached to it, which there's a few on here. I forget exactly what they are, but it dives into some of the production stuff and some other behind the scenes kind of stuff. And for this being an import, the Blu-ray included was completely region free. So I was able to throw this in my player and it fired right up and played no problem. So not only an import set, a totally region free set. So that was really cool to find that out because I had a little bit of a worry that the Blu-ray might not play. So popping that in and getting that to fire right up was that was cool. I mean, I already have it on Blu-ray and in 4K, so this is now my third copy. But this collector set was just something that I had to grab right when you sent it to me, and I was able to track it down and find it. That was definitely something I knew I wanted to add in. So yeah, that is the Italian import from Warner, slippery box of Joker on 4K.
Nice recovery.
Yeah.
That's badass, man. I love that. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't believe there's deleted scenes with this movie, and I believe the reasoning for it is Todd Phillips doesn't like deleted scenes. He said if there is, there's very few, but I don't think there's any. What did he say? It's something along the lines of, if the scene doesn't make final cut, there's a reason for that, so it's not meant to be seen. Which, like, I get, but at the same time, it's a cool thing for us people that love extras. So
yeah, I forget. I have to go back to either pop that in or check out the Blu-ray or the 4K and see if there is any at all. But you might be right. I can't remember of watching any. Oh, thank you, Wayne. I can't remember watching any of the deleted scenes for that. So yeah, I guess if it did make the movie, we weren't meant to see it, which is kind of unfortunate. And then I do have a couple other things if you want to get into. I can show these off really quick.
Yeah, that's fine.
We finally got Cameron's collection in 4K. If anybody knows about these, we have been waiting for these for a long time. These finally showed up for me today. They were ordered about a week or two ago. So Disney Movie Club came through for me on these. We have True Lies, we have The Abyss, and we have Aliens, all finally in 4K. They are branded as Ultimate Collector's Editions. They come with a good amount of special features. I will go through them really quick on the back. In my mind, I wouldn't call these Ultimate Collector's Editions, but nonetheless, to include the stuff that's on here is good, because we don't usually get this amount of stuff from like Disney as far as special features. It usually comes in a little bit quiet, and we don't get to check out a whole lot of extra stuff. But they went above, the norm for these ones. So let's start really quick with Aliens. I've heard this is more of an upscale from an old Blu-ray than it is an actual 4K. All of these, unfortunately, were digitally upgraded to 4K. So there's a lot of AI and a lot of DNR and, scrubbing. So there's a lot of mixed reactions on these 4Ks, but just to have these in my collection alone, I knew I had to pick these up. The Abyss and True Lies have not even gotten releases, I don't think, since DVD. So to get these here is awesome. Aliens is a 3-disc set. It gives us the 86 theatrical cut and the 1990 special edition. It's got an extra 17 minutes of footage. And then special feature-wise, we are looking at director commentary with James Cameron, some cast and crew stuff. He does an introduction on the special edition as well, right in the beginning. You have some isolated scores. What's this here? Final theatrical and composer's original. Okay, I'm not quite sure. Oh, with the scores. Okay, so they detail the scores. That's kind of cool. And then on the extra bonus Blu-ray, it comes with the inspiration and design of Aliens, superior firepower making Aliens, and then pre and post-production stills, behind the scenes footage, and much more. So that covers Aliens. The Abyss. I've heard this is the best out of the 3 as far as transfers and how it looks. So this also comes with the 89 theatrical cut and the 93 special edition with an extra half an hour of footage. So that's awesome. And this is something I have not seen in years. So I'll be happy to revisit The Abyss. Special feature wise, we are looking at, it's called Deep Dive, a conversation with James Cameron, the Legacy of the Abyss, Under Pressure, the making of the Abyss, some archive stuff, stills, and video, with shooting, script, original treatment, storyboards, and some more stuff. So a bunch of special features on the Abyss as well. And then the big one that most people were waiting for was True Lies. Jamie Lee Curtis, Arnold, big time 90s action flick. Not a whole lot going on here as far as special features. But what they did do was this brand new Fear Is Not an Option. It's a look back at True Lies. It's a brand new documentary. So I think I've heard it's about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes long. So I'll be looking big time into that documentary to see what they cover. Because I haven't seen a good documentary about this movie, I don't think, ever. So that's cool to be on here. And then you have some archive stuff. About script, artwork, marketing, and the production secrets of True Lies with exclusive behind-the-scenes documents and more. So that is the Cameron, I guess we'll call, trilogy of 4Ks. All brand new, came out last week, and I'm finally able to get my hands on these and add these in to my collection.
I love True Lies. I think it's a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's great action flick.
I guess I'm a little bummed. A little bit bummed that there's an over-reliance on AI. I guess I thought Cameron would want to be more hands-on than that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's the way we're going.
That is his vision for some reason. And Terminator 2 is notoriously known as one of the worst 4K transfers and upgrades that was done. And that was Cameron. That was his choices. This is the way that he envisioned, I guess, bringing it up to, modern day and using technology. I have Terminator 2. I've watched it. Some of the changes are a little bit subtle, like, digitally inputting Arnold's face on the stunt rider in the motorcycle scene, things like that. So I don't know what capacity
Sounds
that
very
he worked
George
on
Lucas.
these. Yeah, right. Changing stuff, which is kind of unfortunate. But I don't know. I'm going to start checking these out this week. And Sean, and if anybody here is curious, I will let everybody know my verdict and how they look and how they turned out.
Awesome, man. Sounds good. Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a moment and thank our channel sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be on here doing all the cool shows that we get to do. Wonderful people like Mr. Matt Whitfield, Jason Nike, our buddy Jesse, Chris Christensen, who is doing the mask giveaway, which I will get to momentarily, and Ryan from Colleague Nation. Without any of those guys doing this show and as many shows as we continue to do on the channel, wouldn't be possible. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to those of you that spend your hard-earned money to support a Patreon program that has not been putting out content lately. Things are a little crazy right now, but it's coming. I assure you that. But if you didn't hear a couple weeks ago, we have a pretty cool giveaway that we're doing here on the channel, and that is a Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 mask giveaway. I think it's going to be spectacular. We're going to have Chris on the channel. He's going to make it well on air, or at least make parts of it well on air with us. We'll just having a deep dive discussion into Halloween and mask making, and it'll be a fun few streams. And I believe right now, tentatively, that is scheduled to begin April the 8th. As of right now, there are 2 ways that you can enter the draw. One is by heading on over to the Legacy of Halloween YouTube channel, subscribing over there and commenting on a video. Those that did so after March the 1st will be entered. And you can also head over to our Legacy of Westeros channel and subscribe over there and leave a comment on one of our videos over there. I don't have a third option for this week yet, but what we will do is we're going to announce it on our Facebook groups, Fandom Empire Now and the Legacy of Halloween, and get everybody, as many people involved as we can in this, because Chris doesn't put out a bad product. He's fantastic at what he does, and looking forward to seeing him do this on air. It's going to be a lot of fun. Without further ado, though, Dean, I don't think there's anything else. So we hopefully have a little treat for you guys, and this is Taking Shape 2. You can purchase the physical copy on Amazon today by Dustin McNeil and Travis Mullins. We had Dustin on not too long ago for I think it was like a 2-hour interview. It was fantastic. Had a blast on that thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to play one chapter from that audiobook. It is available on Audible too, and I actually think it's put together really nice on audio too. So depending on what kind of voices you like. You might get turned off. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But like if you're driving around or you're on a long drive or you're on a long walk, stick this thing in your ears and listen to it. Again, you can purchase it on Audible today. We're going to take a look at Halloween 3D, which was supposed to be a follow-up to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. But as we learn in Stef Hutchinson's take, it kind of becomes its own thing. So strap yourselves in and we'll stop it every so often. If we get booted off air, we will be back.
Yeah.
We just won't be able to continue this. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Again, Taking Shape 2, available now on Amazon as well as Audible. Check it out. It's worth every penny. I call them Halloween Bibles. So enjoy. Dean, maybe just give me a thumbs up if you hear the audio play.
Halloween 3D. This Halloween, Who's Hunting Who? Treatment by Stef Hutchinson. While Todd Farmer and Patrick Lussier's Halloween 3D died a sudden death in late 2009, there was another iteration of the project that cropped up immediately after. Briefly developed on the Trancast side of things, it would take a different approach to the continuing storyline of the Rob Zombie era. This second take on Halloween 3D didn't get nearly as far as the first, but it remains a fascinating what-if in the annals of Halloween's lost sequel history. This second draft was championed by writer Stef Hutchinson, a name that many Halloween fans will instantly recognize.
So I'm going to pause it right there and say, if you haven't been watching our shows for the last few months, then Stef Hutchinson is the fella behind Halloween Night Dance, the comic series, Halloween, the First Death of Laurie Strode, the comic series. He did a bunch of other Halloween one-shot comics as well. The truth is, he's probably written more Halloween than anybody has in terms of what's officially been released. And he's also a name that we cannot confirm, but we believe is involved with whatever is going on with the Halloween Miramax project or projects. So that's a bit of background. Let me know if you give me a thumbs up again. I'm going to try something. Let me know if it still plays.
Growing up in the United Kingdom, Stef Hutchinson had two passions: horror movies and comic books. His childhood enthusiasm for these mediums would endure through to adulthood, where, as a writer, he would combine them to great success. In 2002, he caught wind of the Halloween Returns to Haddonfield convention, which was being planned for the following year. He connected with organizer Anthony Massey, who asked if he would be interested in filming the event for posterity. Hutchinson and his crew would capture a gaggle of footage across the weekend, enough to comprise a documentary. This concept soon took flight, with Hutchinson pitching Malek Akkad the idea in London later that year. Won over by the pitch, the younger Akkad agreed to help bring the documentary project to life, with Hutchinson in the director's chair. Ultimately titled Halloween 25 Years of Terror, the film would land distribution through Anchor Bay Entertainment in July 2006. Reviews from fans and critics alike were overwhelmingly positive. Even still, as co-writer, director, and producer, Hutchinson was disappointed with the documentary's final cut, which he hoped would be longer and more in-depth. Oddly enough, 25 Years of Terror would pave the way for much longer horror docs, such as Crystal Lake Memories, The Complete History of Friday the 13th, and Never Sleep Again, The Elm Street Legacy. Hutchinson's involvement with Halloween Returns to Haddonfield wasn't solely limited to filmmaking. As a writer, he had long sought to tell stories within the Halloween universe.
Just pausing it there for a second. Another thing that I think a lot of people didn't realize is he's the guy behind 25 Years of Terror. Like his fingerprints are all over the franchise, and yet it's a name, in my opinion, that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, that was something that I didn't realize, and I own 25 Years of Terror, so I had that floating around on DVD somewhere.
Nice. That'd be good to go back and check out. I don't have it. I'm sure you can get it online.
Through the medium of comics. With the 25th anniversary celebration, he was finally afforded this opportunity, which resulted in a special one-shot titled Halloween, One Good Scare. Released as a convention exclusive, this comic introduced fans to David Loomis, son of the late Sam Loomis, as he explores his father's tragic legacy. This issue was well received enough to warrant the commissioning of a second one-shot titled Halloween Autopsis. which Anchor Bay packaged with the 25 Years of Terror DVD release. Set within the Halloween H2O.
So do you have that too?
Which one was it again? The comic?
Halloween. I didn't even.
I don't think so. It would have rang a bell. So that's one that they slipped by me.
Timeline, Autopsys told a self-contained story about a photographer hired to follow Dr. Loomis in hopes of getting a rare photo of the elusive Michael Myers. Given the success of One Good Scare and Autopsys, Hutchinson teamed with Devil's Due Publishing to write additional official Halloween comics. These included the 4-part Night Dance series, the 30 Years of Terror anthology collection, and the First Death of Laurie Strode trilogy. He would also publish a pair of official short stories called Sam and Charlie. The consensus among critics was clear. Hutchinson might not have been the first person to write Halloween comics, but he was certainly among the best to do so. Dread Central's Steve Barton called Hutchinson's work better than some of the sequels it was leading into. Bloody Disgusting's Jason Jenkins argued that the first 2 issues of The First Death of Laurie Strode cemented Hutchinson as one of the better writers the Halloween saga has ever had. Stef is responsible for what are arguably the best Halloween and Michael Myers stories told since the original 2 films. Jason Shepard, TrueHorror.net. Unfortunately, Hutchinson's acclaimed run with Devil's Due Publishing did not end well. The company fell into financial turmoil, which it first blamed on the 2008 economic downturn and later on its distributor. The resulting cash flow problems brought their Halloween publications to an abrupt halt. This left the concluding issue of the First Death of Laurie Strode trilogy in limbo. Though written and eventually partially illustrated, this final issue has yet to see a release even today, which is a terrible shame given what a powerful conclusion it is to the miniseries. Fans would be wise to lobby for this comic's release. It's the sequel we deserved but never got. While Devil's Due is unlikely to ever publish a Halloween comic again, Hutchinson continues to collaborate with Maleka Card at Trancas International Films on various projects. Having heard about the sudden collapse of Farmer and Lussia's Halloween 3D, Hutchinson inquired about pitching his own Halloween 3 concept. Card responded that he could do so, given that his story was compatible with the 3D format. This was the only stipulation placed upon his pitch. The narrative canvas was otherwise blank. Spanning 18 pages, the resultant treatment was titled Halloween 3D and dated November the 18th, 2009. The story.
Now, before we get into the story here, what do you remember about hearing, or what do you remember hearing about Halloween 3D? Obviously, there was the logo on, I believe it was HalloweenMovies.com, and we thought it was eventually going to happen, and just sort of began this long silent period for the franchise.
Yeah. Not a whole lot. I do remember hearing about it possibly being in the works, but back then I wasn't quite in the know the way that I am today. So that, as far as all I really knew about was Halloween 3 possibly coming out. I assume back then it would be a follow-up to Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 2. And after seeing Halloween 2, I was kind of, really on the fence about even continuing and, what they might do with Halloween 3D. So yeah, not a whole lot, but I remember rumblings of it, back in the day.
Yeah, no, I don't ever remember hearing of the Hutchinson version, though, until diving into it in here. It was always the other version, the one more directly connected with the zombie movies.
Yeah.
This Halloween 3D opens at the Nichols home in Langdon, Illinois on October the 27th. Little Bobby has begun to suffer nightmares lately of a terrifying boogeyman. Shortly after being tucked in, he's attacked by an unseen figure in his bedroom. Hearing his scream, Mrs. Nichols wakes to find her husband in bed beside her, his throat slit. Panicked, she runs into the hall and directly into Michael Myers, who kills her. At once, the house is again quiet, the outside world blissfully unaware of the carnage within. The opening credits play atop footage of a jack-o'-lantern in darkness. The background slowly illuminates to reveal an entire field of glowing jack-o'-lanterns. Jumping ahead to October the 31st, we find a retired Lee Brackett laying flowers at his daughter's grave. It's been 3 years since Halloween 2, which ended with Loomis and Laurie dying. Michael's body was never recovered. Brackett now lives in Langdon, a good distance from Haddonfield. We learn he was fired from his job as sheriff when his own officers caught him burning down the Myers house. Being the anniversary of his daughter's death, Haddonfield authorities ask that Langdon's Sheriff Hall check on Brackett. Hall finds the former lawman's home littered with case files related to Michael Myers. Most think Brackett's crazy for still hunting his daughter's killer, but not Hall. He somberly asks whether Brackett wants to kill Michael to save lives or to exact revenge, but he never gets a response. Brackett is unaware that Hall has 2 officers shadowing him today. Just then, the retired sheriff's teenage niece, Alice Brackett, arrives with a gift of homemade cookies on this most difficult of days. A perpetually single bookworm, Alice is the least popular of her social circle. Her best friends include Cassie, a happy-go-lucky 17-year-old, and Phoebe, a cheerleader whose boyfriend is a star player on the football team. Tonight is Langdon's first ever homecoming, which is being commemorated with a parade, fireworks, a football game, and a school dance. As part of a bitter love triangle, Cassie becomes the target of a mean-spirited prank in which her crush plans to seduce her, but only to get nude photos to distribute amongst their peers. Elsewhere, a local hunter finds Brackett using pumpkins for target practice. The 2 men set off for a local diner, but their truck slams into a large horned whitetail buck. Uneasy over the animal's death, Brackett leaves the hunter to dispose of the roadkill. Michael Myers appears a moment later and impales the hunter on the buck's antlers. The returned slasher then ventures into town to begin stalking Cassie, even coming face to face with her during the homecoming parade. Hearing news of Cassie's stalker, an unsettled Alice alerts her uncle. As night falls on Haddonfield, we see Michael in the Nichols home from the opening. Standing over Mrs. Nichols' corpse, he dons his classic white mask in preparation for a night of terror. Brackett, too, is preparing, arming himself with heavy artillery and a photo of Annie. Cassie falls victim to the aforementioned prank during the homecoming game, though Michael kills the prankster soon after. He chases a horrified Cassie back to school, where teachers phone Sheriff Hall. Tipped off by Alice, Brackett rushes to the school and begs Cassie to remain in an open space as bait to draw Michael out of the shadows. Hall strongly objects to this, but Cassie agrees and goes to the dance. Michael enters the school soon after, slaughtering Phoebe and the entire cheerleading squad in the girls' locker room. He then crashes the dance by lighting Phoebe's boyfriend on fire and sending him into the crowded gymnasium. This causes panic while also setting the school ablaze. The final chase boils down to Cassie, Brackett, and Michael. Brackett is forced to choose between saving Cassie's life or ending Michael's. He ultimately chooses to save Cassie, redeeming himself from his self-destructive quest for vengeance. Michael vanishes into the night once more. Sheriff Hall wonders aloud why Michael didn't kill Brackett when given the chance. The retired sheriff replies that, having already murdered his daughter, there's nothing else he could do to hurt me. Hall then makes a startling confession. Some time ago, Annie's grave had been dug up in Haddonfield Cemetery. Authorities later found her body and casket on display at Brackett's former home, presumably as revenge for burning down the Myers house. Believing Brackett to be Michael's true target, Hall withheld this information and used him as bait to catch the slasher. Arriving home, Brackett notices something unsettling across the street. A scarecrow decoration with the severed head of the white-tailed buck from earlier. Brackett rushes into his neighbor's house, which we recognize as the Nichols family home, to find a slaughtered family of 3. Written in blood on the wall is a name: Alice. With this, Michael's true plan comes into focus. To further hurt Brackett, he would go after someone else he loved, his teenage niece. By slaughtering the Nichols family, he was able to use their home to spy on his nemesis from across the street. This is where he took notice of Alice. Michael therefore only pretended to focus on Cassie as a diversion, manipulating the situation to his advantage. With so much focus on Cassie, he was able to isolate his true target. A panicked Brackett phones Alice's home. We see the bodies of her parents in their living room as the phone rings unanswered. Elsewhere in a vacant field, a large bonfire rages amid a sea of glowing jack-o'-lanterns. Having been tied to a wood pyre, Alice screams as the flames envelop her. Tilting his head, the shape watches as she burns to death. He has won. Welcome to Langdon. As with Farmer and Lucia's take on Halloween...
So we'll get Dustin's take here shortly, and obviously that's not Dustin's voice, but the narrator is speaking for Dustin.
Yeah.
I know they dive more into it in the behind the scenes stuff here, but there's a lot of little things there that scream back to old Michael, the putting things on display, the fucking with people, it sounds more like 78 Michael than it does Rob Zombie's Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're mostly here for. But there's a couple things I noticed there that also tie into like newer versions of Michael that we see. And a level of brutality that we're sort of not used to until we got kills. So I kind of like the mix that's going on between classic Michael and this kind of like elevated, more enraged version of him, where he's like setting people on fire and decapitating animals. Like it's a little crazy, but it's kind of a cool change.
Yeah, no, I really dig it. By the way, Flix just sent me some photos of his home theater, and I think we should just go to his house and watch movies from now on. My
that's a future project of mine at some point.
Oh, did you see his photos?
Not yet, but
oh my god, dude, it's it is otherworldly.
That's nice.
In 3D, Hutchinson is clearly trying to rein in some of Rob Zombie's more polarizing stylistic choices. For starters, he immediately ditches the remake's portrayal of Illinois as a depraved hillbilly haven. Hutchinson also moves the action from Haddonfield to Langdon, which he sets up as a quaint anytown USA. Langdon is basically what Haddonfield was before Zombie had his way with it. Recall that we last saw Langdon in 1998, with Haddonfield H2O's opening moments. By switching the focus from Laurie to Brackett, Hutchinson also ditches the psychotic madness that permeated the previous installment. The screenwriter instead grounds his sequel in reality, without so much as a nightmare sequence. Given its continued focus on Laurie, the Farmer Lucia draft retains some of the madness angle. We're no longer privy to Michael's hallucination of his ghostly mother and the white horse, though there's no reason to think he's still not having them. While these choices would mark a huge departure from Zombie's artistic vision, they would have also helped to make the franchise more accessible to mainstream audiences again. The inherent difficulty in creating a sequel to Halloween 2 is that the film technically has two official endings, though they are distinctly different. As theatrically released, Laurie Strode exits the rundown shack, dons her brother's tattered mask, and winds up institutionalized but alive. Per the director's cut ending, which Zombie strongly prefers, Laurie exits the rundown shack, attempts to stab a dying Loomis, and is shot dead by one of Brackett's men.
Thanks, Lee. It's greatly appreciated, man. Hope you're well.
Since it charges that Laurie died, you would naturally assume that Hutchinson's Halloween 3D was a sequel to the director's cut, but it is not. This draft was submitted some 2 months before the director's cut was first released onto home video. It's by sheer coincidence that Hutchinson writes off Laurie Strode as having died. Recall that the previous Farmer Lucia draft was alternately a sequel to the theatrical cut, in which Laurie survived. Despite this discrepancy, both drafts were technically written while Zombie toiled away in the editing room on his preferred vision. With regard to continuity, this Halloween 3D is surprisingly versatile in its storytelling, which may well be intentional. There's almost nothing in it that would prevent the filmmakers from casting Charles Cyphers and declaring it a sequel to the original Halloween. It would even fit after Halloween Resurrection, without any messy retconning. Given its tonal departure and vague continuity, would this Halloween 3D have even felt like part of the Zombie timeline? Contingent upon the return of Brad Dourif, Tyler Mane, and the 2007 Myers House? Possibly still yes. As a dark character study, this fits in marvelously with the previous two installments. Together they would have made a fine trilogy. Focusing on Michael, Halloween 2007 is the horrific tragedy of a boy trying to regain his family. Focusing on Laurie, Halloween 2 is about our inability to escape who we really are. Focusing on Brackett, this Halloween 3D is a study in grief and a cautionary tale of revenge. It's all too perfect, and a shame the story couldn't have ended this way. The treatment's opening sequence is interesting for the simple fact that we don't know yet its relevance, or if it even has relevance. Why would Michael murder this young boy and his parents? And in Langdon, no less. Is this just a random triple murder to open the story? We're initially unsure. Season of the Witch aside, no other Halloween has ever opened with such narrative ambiguity. As viewers, we've become accustomed in this series to knowing what's happening most of the time, but our uncertainty here is by design. As a storyteller, Hutchinson withholds certain details that he'll only reveal when the time is right. In the case of the opening murders, we won't know their true relevance until the story's final moments. On a similar note, we're initially unaware the opening titles depict the location of the movie's closing scene. The title sequence's field of glowing jack-o'-lanterns is the same one in which Michael later roasts Alice in the bonfire. So the end is actually the beginning. We just don't realize it the first time around. Speaking of Hutchinson's writing style, he's every bit as conniving as the characters he writes. In this Halloween 3D, we're really only privy to Brackett's plan, which involves using Cassie as bait to lure Michael out into the open. Unbeknownst to Brackett and the audience, Sheriff Hall also has a plan, which involves using Brackett as bait. Further unbeknownst to anyone, Michael has his own plan, which involves targeting Alice as a way to hurt Brackett. None of this is evident until the finale, however. Hutchinson likes to play his cards close to his chest, which is an effective way to keep the viewer engaged with the story.
And in my opinion, a lot of the more recent Halloween movies have, like, there's not been a lot of ambiguity. I feel like you most of the time know what's happening.
Mhm.
Like, if you weren't spoiled before the movie, it's not hard to tell Corey's in the Michael get up there. I mean, he's full on see him put it on. There's I'd like a Halloween movie, man, where we're 3/4 of the way through and I'm still going,
Yeah.
where the fuck is this going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a really interesting writing style and a way to tie things together and keep things familiar while also keeping you guessing. So, we've been saying, we believe he's involved on any upcoming projects, and reading the return script and then hearing things like this, it gives me hope that he's got some involvement.
We're constantly left wondering what everyone's true agenda might be. With Halloween 3D, Hutchinson makes welcome reference to the ancient festival of Samhain, which is something the franchise has not done since 1995's Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. This reference comes during a montage sequence as the sun sets on Halloween night. We overhear Cassie's father telling her little brother a story about the holiday's origins. His words play over-top images of Michael and Brackett preparing for a night of mayhem, each in their own way. These words faintly echo those of Connell Cochran in Halloween 3. Recall that Dr. Loomis made similar comments in the Kenny Medina draft of Halloween 4. Cassie's dad in Halloween 3D. During the witching hour, the walls break down. The gap between the spirit world and what we see as real becomes as thin as a veil, and some people, some monsters, see right through to the other side. Connell Cochran in Halloween 3. The barriers would be down, you see, between the real and the unreal, and the dead might be looking in to sit by our fires of turf. Halloween, the festival of Samhain. Given that Halloween 3D was poised to become the franchise's first three-dimensional installment, it should come as no surprise that Hutchinson packs plenty of spectacle into his story. The kills are as numerous as they are inventive. In one scene guaranteed to secure a hard R rating, Michael slashes through an entire locker room full of cheerleaders. This is but a tease of an even bigger set piece when he later crashes the dance by sending a flaming victim into a crowd of people. The ensuing panic is so great that no one seems to notice or care that Michael himself strides into the crowd after Cassie. With an entrance framed by the mouth of a giant pumpkin, Langdon's homecoming dance would no doubt make for a terrific 3D visual, especially as it burns down around the heroes during the finale. When it comes to Halloween films, you never know how they're going to end. Sometimes the endings are happy, sometimes they're not. Sometimes the heroes prevail, and it's still an unhappy ending. And there's always the strong chance that the next sequel is going to undo whatever has just been done. Even so, Halloween 3D's ending is a dark one. Anyone familiar with Hutchinson's work in the franchise knows he likes an ending where evil triumphs, and this is exactly what happens in Halloween 3D.
Sounds exactly what the franchise needs right now, too, after the last one.
That's what I would say.
Not only does Michael escape relatively unscathed, but he successfully enacts his murderous plan. By story's end, he's left a long trail of bodies leading up to Alice Brackett, whose death is slow and agonizing. If there remained any part of Brackett left to break, it's surely now broken. Evil has solidly defeated good. An ending this bleak feels right at home in the Rob Zombie timeline. A broken hero. The final moments of Halloween 2007 found Sheriff Brackett in a rough spot, having just discovered his only daughter in a pool of her own blood. She'd been attacked by a killer whose recent escape he hadn't taken seriously enough, at least not at first. The character would fare even worse in the final moments of Halloween 2. It's here Brackett not only loses his daughter to the same killer, but also the surrogate daughter he took in after the first film. Having orchestrated Laurie's secret adoption as an infant, he'd come to feel responsible for her well-being. With these devastating losses, Brackett is now a thoroughly broken man. His pain is made worse by the fact that Michael's body was never recovered after Halloween 2, which strongly suggests that he escaped. This is where we find the character in Halloween 3D. At the outset of this new story, we learn that Brackett is no longer sheriff or even residing in Haddonfield, and for good reason. Sometime after the events of Halloween 2, he brazenly set fire to the old Myers house and stood out front in full uniform to watch it burn. Having committed third-degree arson in a residential neighborhood, he soon fired from his job as sheriff. Now looked upon as a threat to the community he once served, Brackett relocates to Langdon. His only hope for any measure of closure is to find and destroy his daughter's killer. His new Halloween tradition involves walking the streets of Haddonfield with a loaded gun, which cannot possibly help his public image. Brackett. It's not like today is worse than the others. I don't miss her anymore because it's this day. I miss her every single day, and each one hurts the same. He stole her from me, ripped the only sunshine I had right out of the sky, and there's no making peace with that. I want her back, Alice. I want her back. A father shouldn't bury his daughter. That's not how it's supposed to be, and it can't ever be made right. This day, Halloween, is different, but not because I remember what happened any less. It's the day I get to be selfish, the day it's about my pain as much as her loss. The day I want to get out there and find him and destroy him and kill him and... Yep, the day I get to be selfish. Anything to make it hurt less. Just for myself, just for a moment. I don't know what sort of person that makes me. Make no mistake, this Halloween 3D would have absolutely rested upon the shoulders of Brad Dourif's performance as Lee Brackett. The actor's wrenching portrayal of the character in Halloween 2 was amongst the strongest of his long and varied career. Hutchinson demonstrates a strong grasp of the role and does great things with it. One early scene would have found an emotional Brackett standing over his daughter's grave in Haddonfield Cemetery. He speaks to her as though she were still alive, in a haunting portrait of a still grieving father. Again, this film would have been Dourif's to dominate. Without him, it could just not have gone forward as written. Langdon Sheriff Hall makes for a solid counterweight to Brackett in this story. Professionally, the two men are kindred spirits. Hall is deeply concerned at the appearance of his friend's home, which is littered with Myers-related articles and case files. He's still worried, not that Brackett is wrong and wasting his time, but that he may be right and Michael is still out there.
In my opinion, Brad Dourif made chicken salad out of chicken shit with the zombie movies.
Yeah.
To see him get basically the leading role and a story that's heavily centered around him, and to see what he could do with good writing would have been awesome.
Yeah, it would have been a treat for everybody. It's a shame we don't get it.
Hall challenges Brackett to look inside and question what's driving him to hunt Michael Myers. Is it concern for others or revenge? The answer is initially revenge, which is why he burnt down the slasher's childhood home. Tragically, it's this grave misstep that lures Michael out of retirement, meaning Brackett now has a lot of blood on his hands. This seems to be Halloween 3D's central message. Revenge is but a terrible stop on the road to self-destruction. Brackett does eventually redeem himself, but it's far too late. Hutchinson would later change Sheriff Hall to Sheriff Harry Brackett, Lee's older brother. This would lead to a dynamic shift in how the two characters interacted. Lee would have left Haddonfield to stay with his brother in Langdon, though it's a tense living situation. In one rewritten scene, Harry would come home to find Lee firing off illegal weapons in the backyard. People are scared of you. They think you're dangerous. I spend half my days telling people otherwise, and here you are firing a nuke in my backyard. The next generation. The Rob Zombie Halloween films were, if nothing else, extremely unconventional entries into the series. His 2007 remake was largely a prequel set inside a depraved sanitarium. Its 2009 follow-up revisited the surviving cast for a close-up look at the horrors of post-traumatic stress. The main story of Hutchinson's Halloween 3D, a grieving father hell-bent on revenge, is equally unconventional for a Halloween. It's the treatment's second story about a group of high schoolers preparing for a Halloween dance that feels like a throwback to earlier films. Given all the bold new directions, this old-school style plotline is a welcome inclusion. The story's younger lead is Cassie Morgan, a perfectly likable and seemingly well-adjusted 17-year-old at Langdon High. Michael begins stalking Cassie early on Halloween Day, which he takes notice of. They eventually come face to face at the homecoming parade, though Michael is wearing an alternate mask, presumably so as not to alarm. As if these sightings weren't unsettling enough, Cassie and Alice return home from school to find a ladder propped outside the former's bedroom window. While initially scared, she's soon distracted by a visit from her crush. Alice remains spooked, however, and phones her uncle. He urges her to remain calm to keep from needlessly upsetting her friend. As already mentioned, Cassie will become the victim of a cruel prank this night. While carried out by her crush, this prank was fiendishly conceived by head cheerleader Susie. A truly awful type, Hutchinson gives the teenaged bully her comeuppance twice in this story. The first occurs when Michael chases Cassie back to Langdon High after her crush's murder. Encountering Susie outside the dance, Cassie delivers an incredibly satisfying and well-deserved right hook, which bloodies the girl's nose. Susie will later be among those slaughtered in the girls' locker room as the dance starts. As Hutchinson writes it, she receives a fate far more graphic than the rest. Cassie's best friends include the socially awkward Alice and peppy cheerleader Phoebe. If that trio reminds you of Annie, Laurie, Linda from the original Halloween, it's because they're quite similar. In all likelihood, they're a direct homage. The teens' interaction are fairly ordinary, a far cry from the foul-mouthed Annie, Laurie, Linda of Halloween 2007. Further like Halloween's original gal trio, only one of these ladies will survive the coming night. Surprisingly, it's not the virginal Alice, in a twist that would likely confound Final Girl scholars. As this story's Laurie Strode archetype, we assume her to be safe. But Hutchinson isn't about to let us feel confident in our preconceived notions. The Ghost of Halloween Past. Set 3 years after the events of Halloween 2, Hutchinson's story never directly addresses how Michael survived the sniper bullet he took in that film's ending, nor how he escaped past the police that surrounded his location. This is really no different than how Halloween 2 dealt with Halloween 2007's ending. We're never told how Michael cheats death, only that he does time and time again. The Farmer Lussier draft of Halloween 3D pulled this same move, so fair enough. Suspension of disbelief has always been a part of the cost of enjoying these movies. Simply put, Michael is back in action at this story's beginning, explanation be damned. Like the previous draft of Halloween 3D, Hutchinson immediately seeks to reset the slasher's aesthetic back to something more familiar. Recall that Rob Zombie had controversially devolved Michael's look into a hobo-esque Phantom of the Opera in the previous film. In this story, Michael sports a fresh set of overalls and a brand new white mask. Oddly enough, it's the unsolved murders behind these new duds that first leads Brackett to believe his nemesis has returned. A murdered gas station attendant without his uniform and a costume shop owner killed during a break-in robbery. In a unique touch, we also see Michael briefly wearing a clown mask that he steals from Cassie's home. Aside from being just plain creepy, this alternate mask allows him to attend the homecoming parade without completely freaking everyone out. The character's return in Halloween 3D brings to mind a recurrent question. What draws Michael out of retirement on certain years, and not others? Is it learning a relative's whereabouts, Halloween 4 and H2O, the alignment of the stars, Halloween 6, or is it, in the case of H3D, revenge for the destruction of his family home? This last motivation is interesting since, up until this proposed installment, Zombie's Michael hadn't demonstrated the same level of fondness for the homestead as Carpenter's Shape had. Sure, the slasher went home in 2007, but not in its 2009 sequel. In actuality, this was due to last-minute budget cuts, and not Zombie's preferred vision. As first written, Michael was to return home in Halloween 2 to find 2 police officers waiting, whom he'd quickly dispatch. In Hutchinson's story, Michael seems fond enough of the old fort to bitterly avenge its fiery destruction. This begs the question, had Brackett not set fire to the Myers house, would this have been just another eventful Halloween? Hutchinson's take on the slasher closely aligns with what we already know of the character. This Michael is ruthless, relentless, and incredibly violent. He's also a schemer who enjoys leaving macabre displays to strike fear into those who would find them. In Halloween 3D, Michael poses the bodies of 3 dead cheerleaders on the homecoming throne, which is unveiled at the dance to everyone's horror. He's seemingly also without fear, as evidenced by a scene near story's end. As the dance erupts into chaos, Brackett points his gun directly at the slasher. Michael immediately grabs the nearby homecoming queen as though she were a human shield, but that's not his intention. Instead, he slits her throat right in front of Brackett, as if to taunt him, as if to say, "You can't possibly stop me." Knowing the girl will succumb to her injury, Brackett fires his gun through her body in order to strike Michael, who charges at him. Slamming Brackett to the floor, Michael has a perfect opportunity to kill him in this moment. But that's also not his intention. With this Halloween 3D treatment, Hutchinson breaks one of Rob Zombie's most steadfast rules with the character by allowing him to drive. Zombie had been a vocal critic of the shape's ability in the original Halloween, one of several changes he made in his 2007 remake. The rocker-turned-filmmaker argued that his Michael, having been incarcerated since the age of 10, would be unable to operate any motor vehicle. He upheld this rule in the remake's 2009 sequel. Hutchinson, however, restores the character's driving privileges by having him chase Cassie through darkened woods in a stolen vehicle. This sequence has strong Halloween 5 vibes. Michael toys with his prey by never actually running her over, just repeatedly slamming into her and knocking her to the ground. For a guy who's never been to driving school, Michael is apparently a decent stunt driver. In a scene set before the car chase, Cassie's crush wanders further into the woods to review the pictures he just snapped of their lovemaking. Flipping through the images, he begins to notice a strange shape behind Cassie in the darkness. By the time he realizes they're not alone, Michael is already beating him to death with a large tree branch. Deafening fireworks from the nearby homecoming game drown out his screams. Picking up the dropped cell phone, Michael snaps a picture of the boy's bloodied face and sends it to Susie, the one who put him up to the cruel prank. Forget how Michael learned to drive. Who in the hell taught him to use a smartphone? Why it wasn't made. There were essentially 2 reasons why this Halloween 3D died in development. First, Hutchinson was never all that enamored with his pitch. While he received positive feedback from Maleka Card, he declined to pursue the gig further due to his own reservations. Part of that owed to the incongruity of writing a bleak tale of revenge that was also supposed to be in 3D. Having to create dark character moments for Brad Dourif's Sheriff Brackett while also figuring out things to throw at the camera never felt quite right for the screenwriter. As such, he moved on to other projects. Hutchinson has a valid point here. This darkly serious material was just not a good tonal fit for the 3D format. Contrast it with 2009's My Bloody Valentine 3D, which was billed itself as a date movie in advertising materials. A date movie, Hutchinson's Halloween 3D was definitely not. The second reason that the draft never moved forward was that the Weinstein Company was still flat broke. This was, after all, mere weeks after Todd Farmer and Patrick Lussier's version had fallen apart. The Weinsteins were still in no place to fund a new Halloween, much less a 3D one. The treatment itself never felt quite right. There was the sense that something was missing, or that some elements didn't line up with each other. Stef Hutchinson.
So that is the end of part 1. If you want part 2, you will have to head on over to Amazon and buy the book, or check it out on Audible. You get a free credit though whenever you sign up there. So good book to spend that free credit on. They do touch on in part 2 that they never identify the year in the film, and there's never anything to link this to be, other than Brad Dourif, to be the Michael Myers from Zombies films. And it's
Right.
like, I don't believe this is supposed to be Tyler Mane, they basically say.
Mhm.
And could very well serve as a sequel to the original as well, actually. So the way it's written is very clever. I also like that Steph was, self-aware of, maybe he would have had to be patient in order to get the thing funded, but he had positive feedback from Maleka Cad, and yet they still decide, or Steph still decided at the end of the day, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm not going to go forward with this. And I think it takes real balls in that scenario to do that.
Yeah, to ultimately not be happy with the end of your project and to kind of scrap it yourself, that's pretty bold. And I think, unfortunately, it's a shame, because even if this is just part 1, or if that was, basically the whole story, It's a damn good story. And the thing that sticks out to me the most is it kind of puts a showcase on how smart Michael is as a slasher. The decisions that he makes and the toying with victims and hiding in plain sight with an alternate mask and stuff like that. It really kind of shines some light on his smarts and how good he is at being able to do what he does. So it sucks. It's a shame that like we don't get stuff like this from such a good writer.
There's a lot of great lost sequels out there that, in my opinion, it's all about execution though when filming the actual thing, right? So,
Right.
You can take chicken salad and also make it chicken shit, not the other way around always.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a little treat for you guys. Gave us an episode to do. Dean impressed us with another show, share, and slash, which was great. And if you missed that earlier, it'll be up on the channel a little later this week, along with last week's episode. We're clipping those out and putting them out as their own things. If you haven't yet, please like the video, comment, subscribe, share it around. Even if you think the episode is worthy of being shared, share it around. I know we have Mike Bish returning again to guest soon. I know we have Chris Christensen on to guest soon. We've got a bunch of things coming up over the course of the next couple of months here at the channel. But before we get out of here, Dean, any final thoughts, man?
That's a damn good story. That's the first that I've heard of it in like a full capacity. And just like Returns, this guy, Stef, people need to be paying attention to him. Look for his writing. I've got fingers crossed on both hands now that he's involved in this upcoming project in Miramax. And if they were to kind of surpass him to someone else, I think that might be a mistake. So I think a really good decision is to consider him for this upcoming stuff.
Absolutely. I agree. If you haven't yet, again, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support us on another level, you can do so over on Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. Again, big shout out to our channel sponsors. Without you, we wouldn't be here. It's greatly appreciated what you do for us. And to everybody, have a great week. If you're a Star Wars fan, we'll be live multiple times. Well, maybe not live, but there'll be multiple pieces of content that go out tomorrow with Star Wars, because it is the debut of the Star Wars Acolyte trailer. And I'll probably do a reaction to that, and then we'll have the full breakdown later in the evening. Big thanks to Dean and our chat mods for participating tonight, and we'll see you next week on Tonight in Haddonfield.